Top5rapwebsite.com. You already know what's going on. Today we got more Joe Budden videos. People have been requesting that I do more Joe Budden videos. You guys like my Joe Budden videos, and I know I have a lot of new subscribers due to my last Joe Budden video who are Joe Budden subscribers, so they like to hear me talk about this topic. Hopefully this will be my last one for a while. Don't really have much else to say here, and I don't think anyone is surprised here. Another, Joe Budden teammates, leaving. We've seen this with the See the Thing Is cast, Olivia. We've seen this with Scotty Beam, Most of the Culture. We've seen this before on the Joe Budden podcast with Mandy, etc., etc., etc. Of course, this is about money. They've been trying to tell us for the past couple months on the podcast, this isn't about money. I said this on my original downfall of the Joe Budden Network video, that this is obviously about money. I don't even have to be a fly in the room. Like, this is very obvious. Very obviously about money. Rory wanted ownership when the Spotify deal came up. Joe said no. Rory wanted to get paid from YouTube. Joe said no. Okay, so I can't verify this, so I'll just kind of play what's...
I'll take less. Not much less. I'll take less. I'll take less. Change the benchmark. Hey, y'all go get a deal and bring it back. I'll take less.
Okay, so basically Joe's Budden saying here, I'm bringing all, so this is where we really see us about money. So here's when the real grimy stuff come out. And again, this is just so grimy. It just sounds so grimy. I don't even like getting too deep into this, but my subscribers want me to say something about it. So I'll just be honest. This shows you this is about money. So he's saying on his part it's about money too. So they can point fingers and say, oh, it wasn't about money for me, or it's about money. It's money, bro. Joe Budden says, y'all go get a deal. Because I'm bringing in all the money, so I'm keeping it. I'm keeping the majority because I brought this in. Now, I don't necessarily think that's right. If you're a team, let's say you're Destiny's Child, you got Beyonce, Kelly, Michelle. Yeah, Beyonce may be the main draw, but she's able to get to that stage because Destiny's Child as a whole kicks butt. So, splits are a thing, and this is something that people should talk about, but beforehand. But this also was like an underlying thing that they didn't really get to in their 2 reunion podcasts where they came back. It still felt kind of weird between them, Rory, Joe Budden, and Maul. But they would debate and make their points, but it just never really came down to what this is really about, which is about Joe saying, I'm the boss of you guys. I'm the boss of you guys and of this podcast. That's always been the underlying tension, I feel. And I feel like before maybe it was discussed like, no, this is more equitable. Like, this is all of ours. Because remember, Joe Budden, he had to like kind of convince these guys to kind of help him out at some points, I would imagine. So this is more equitable. But now Joe's saying, no, I'm the boss. I make the rules. So he's saying, yeah, I bring in a big bag, so I'm keeping it. So, and he's basically using his power dynamic, his status as the bigger, more popular person as a former rapper. He's using that to say, in this podcast realm, I'm more popular, thus I bring in more viewers, people, deals, therefore I deserve the lion's share.
I'll take less. You eat different. I bring it.
And then, hold on, let me see.
I eat different.
And he said, I'll take less, but not much less. So even then, he's still telling you, like, even if you do bring in a bag, like, my proportions are going to be different from y'all's. When I bring in something, I'm eating a lion's share. When you bring in something, you can have a different split, but I'm still taking a big percent of that. This, I mean, this is what it sounds like.
Ain't brought shit.
There you go.
They got the nerve to have y'all fucking representation that ain't been around in 6 years. Hit Ian phone about something. I won't say what I want to say. Somewhere else. PTSD. I say all of that to say arrogance and that entitlement somewhere else.
Okay.
PTSD. I say all of that since Rory feels like he had. Like,
and here's your fires, Rory.
He feels like he's entitled to more.
Okay, so again, this is just, I don't want to say funny to me, but like, I'm not surprised by Joe Budden. First of all, I'll say all this, I'm not surprised. I was surprised more so that Joe Budden got to where he got, like 2017, 2018, when he was really red hot. I'm like, wow, like he's actually turned into a great figure in hip hop. I was more surprised by that. I'm not really surprised by the crumbling infrastructure, because this is just what happens with Joe Budden. Even when I first learned about who Joe Budden was when I was a kid, like I would read The Source and XXL magazines, and it was just like, I don't want to throw salt on his name because, you know, this is a grown man, he got kids, etc. But, you know, even when I would read about him back then as a kid, I'd be like 7, 8 reading The Source, reading XXL. It's like Joe Budden in buffoonery. It would be like him in buffoonery. You know, it was very not often about the music. So
Rory is an option.
So it's just hypocrisy to me, because here's Joe Budden. He talks about, you know, I'm for the artist, I'm for the creator. You know, all my years in Def Jam, I've been messed over. Slaughterhouse, I was messed over. Basically, everyone, I'm the victim. Everyone is messing me over, right? And, oh, Spotify messed us over. We deserve X, Y, Z. So I said this in my last video too. It's like, overvalue yourself, or your product, rather. Not yourself, let's say your product. Because it's good to have big self-worth. Overvalue the product you're selling. Whether it be your music, your podcast, whatever. Def Jam gave you what they gave you, Spotify gave you what they gave you, and you asked for more. The same way that Rory's asking for more. It shouldn't even be the same way, because you wouldn't imagine that someone who's been side of the creator and has been through all this laundry list, Kmart list, receipt lists, long set of things, you wouldn't imagine he wouldn't structure his own business like that. You know, to where it's basically, I'm Def Jam now, and you fools are Joe Budden, and you think you deserve, I'm gonna do basically what Def Jam did to me, to you. So it's just hypocrisy to me. But I can't, again, through this I'm not too surprised, and I low-key didn't even want to do the video because, like, I'm just, this is obviously what was, it's so obvious that this was going to happen that Charlemagne called it out. Charlemagne the God called it out like years ago. If you've been following Joe Budden, you're not like a super hard stan. Like, you're not one of those guys who are like, oh, you don't listen to every second of the podcast. You didn't catch minute 266, 54 seconds. You're not a real fan. You ain't been listening since XYZ. You're not, unless you're one of those guys. Like, I don't think anyone's really too surprised. He's kind of an erratic dude. In addition to that, like, the more controversy he has, like Joe Budden, he feeds on controversy. Like, there has to be some type of controversy, and that's when he gets going. Even his initial podcast spike was due to the Drake controversy, him chasing kids down the street and his wife beat her with a rock or a brick or whatever it was, dissing Drake like 4 or 5 times to no response. It was just like controversy and theatrics. Or even Love and Hip Hop. That's kind of what gives Joe Budden those boosts to where, okay, he can now take that and ride that for, you know, however many months or moons. So that's what we're getting here. And very obviously Joe Budden's going to bring DJ Academics back. And I kind of want to get to that later, but since it's fresh on my mind, I probably won't finish this whole video anyways. Like, if he brings DJ Academics back, which is more than likely. So let's talk about that, because Joe Budden speaks on that here. We already spoke about the hypocrisy. I think everyone can see that this is hypocrisy. I think everyone's looking at this. I went on social media, everyone's like, okay, dude is insane. Like, but, you know, this is, if you follow this career, this is like par for course. DJ Academics. So it's just so funny how things work out, you know, because Everyday Struggle, I remember when Everyday Struggle initially aired. And then Joe Budden was kind of the more popular name, and he uses that to his advantage on certain people when he can, because he used to, like, I don't see why anyone would work with Joe Budden after this, personally, like, business wise. I don't see why anyone would work with him, because it's like all of his co-hosts, whether it's man, woman, whether it was this year, 2 years ago, 4 years ago, them folks just be dropping, like, they just be leaving. Like, it's just always some stuff crumbling due to this nigga. Like with this nigga at the center. You know what I mean? So I don't see why anyone would ever do business with him again, like on that level. And if you're still doing business with him, I would be looking a way to just use him for the rest of whatever's left and then get out immediately. Unless you just enjoy a roller coaster ride. But back to academics, I don't see why academics would even want to work with Joe again, considering how Joe Budden treated him on Everyday Struggle. Joe Budden came and sure, maybe he created the name of the show or whatever he contributed. He came in that show like, I'm that man, this is my show, I'm the guy, I'm the star. But no. Oh, maybe for people who are into hip hop when Pump It Up was out and all that, you're the more popular name. But really, DJ Academics was the key to that show. And you saw that after Joe Budden left, the show continued. They went through a couple hosts before they got to Wayno, which was a good fit. And the show continued. When they initially aired that show, DJ Academics was the more hot guy on social media. He was hot, red hot. He was the one helping break artists. So, but Joe Budden treated this nigga disrespectfully. No telling what he did to him behind the scenes. So I don't even know why DJ Academics would even want to help, bro. Oh wait, I do know why. He wants to shit on Rory. So whatever they got personally, I'm not speaking. I won't speak on that. But it's funny because Academics is now in a situation. At this moment, he's big dog. He's streaming. He's still doing what he was doing. He's in his niche and he's found his niche. He knows what to do. So he's getting his paper. So he's in a position to where I don't even know if he's looking at it like this. He could have saved the Joe Budden podcast or network or whatever they call it now. I'm not talking just about the podcast. I'm talking about that whole conglomerate of shows they got that they were branding as a network. Up until like 2 months ago, they changed the name on YouTube. Because my initial downfall of Joe Budden network video, that had nothing to do with the Rory and Maul leaving, and it had nothing to do with Inner Turmoil or Olivia from See the Thing Is leaving. That video only had to do with analytics and how they were like stuck at the same amount of subscribers and decreasing. Like they were an active channel, actively losing subscribers every week. Not a net profit, net loss in subscribers, despite all this you're putting into it. So later in this video, Joe talks about, yeah, we're paying this, it takes this, and that, it takes paying this man, getting the Lord, getting that. You're paying all this, and the product wasn't delivering even when y'all were on good terms. So it was bad business decisions. That whole video was about bad business decisions outside of the turmoil. This video more so about, I guess, the downfall, or not the downfall, the aftermath of the turmoil. And it's a false point to make, to tell someone like, oh, well, I spent this and that, this and that. Well, it's like trying to talk up to someone that only works on someone who doesn't know. But someone who actually knows the process, it's like, bro, you just listed 4 things, but like all them, none of them shits takes that much energy. So you're like trying to overstate how difficult and expensive this is to justify getting over on me. Which I'm sure is what Def Jam did to Joe Budden at one point. I'm sure many people have done it to at some point, being a musician, because it happens a lot in the industry. But anyways, yeah, I don't see why Academics would want to, but he's in the position where he can really help the Joe Budden network. Like if Academics decides to be a reoccurring person or do reoccurring videos with Joe Budden on that network, that's like Joe Budden needs that. He needs Academics. So it wasn't, so there some amends have to be made, because Academics was a star of that show. Everyday Struggle. Sure, Joe created it, whatever, this and that. To me, that's Academics' show. He held it down. He brought the initial audience, I feel like. And really, it was all music talk, which is DJ Academics' bag. Joe Budden is not music talk. Joe Budden's podcast is like a talk show. It's like current trends and topics. But yeah, that's my opinion. Again, the downfall of Joe Budden network video, that wasn't really my opinion. It was just me looking at numbers and analytics. But let's go on and see what else goes on here.
He feels like he's entitled to more.
Okay, we already got that.
Contract. And from this point forward,
I'm just skipping through y'all.
I'm the person that has to say that.
Okay, so this goes back to the point that was never touched. If they would have just said in those reunion podcasts, like, so you think you the boss or are you the boss? Because they're looking at it like this, and I think some fans even are looking at it like, okay, this is equitable. Maybe there's the Joe Budden podcast is split up amongst the original members. So even the way they brought it out, like it was supposed to be called "I'll name this podcast later." So who knows if Joe Budden was even supposed to be the forefront? He probably at that time needed a couple other people because his name alone wasn't enough to he needed other people surrounding him, bouncing stuff off of him to give it like legitimacy. So it's a concerted effort, and I think even some fans, maybe even Rory and Maul, maybe even some of the staff there were looking at it like, is it maybe a concerted effort? Maybe Joe has like 55%, but the rest is put up more. Versus what's being said here, basically, no, bro, I'm the boss of you, you're the employee, you do what I tell you, which is what he's explained. But he's doing that, Joe Budden's doing that, again, I said this already, he's doing that. I don't want to hear anything else about Def Jam and what they did to you. You're doing the same thing, bro. Like, I don't want to hear about Spotify and what they offer you. That's what they offer you, bro. You take it or you leave it, like you told Rory and Mal. Like, I don't want to hear that no more, personally. And kings of content, like, for me, to call yourself the king of content, when really you just have 4 podcasts on your network, like 3, 4, whatever, they're all talking about the same thing. None of them are like topical. Like, this isn't that great content. This is just video content and more audio content. Like you niggas ain't in Final Cut, in Photoshop, like throwing in plugins, getting like really being creative with it. But again, I don't follow his podcast like the gospel. So, but there are people, and I can see it in the comments. They're like very passionate about Joe Budden. Like you can tell they probably listened to his music way back then too. So they've built up this huge, like almost concern for it, so that they'll rush in there and stop me when I say things like that. And that's their right. Let's finish this off, y'all. How much time we got?
You are observing the way that I am.
Rory and Maul can go start a podcast. Well, no, they can't.
Okay, and here's the thing is, here's another point I want to make. When Roy said he wanted to fight Joe Budden, he's like, "Oh, friends don't talk to each other like that. Friends this. We're friends from a friend perspective." But then, now that Joe's mad, he's talking about suing him. Like, I'll sue y'all if y'all go do my 2 friends. I'll sue the both of you if you go do another podcast. But when they asked you for the hands, you was like, "Bro, we're friends." But now you'll sue them and say all this when they're not there. Again, this is Joe Budden, folks.
Not at least for another year.
Who's surprised?
By contract. If they do,
this is not a good look.
Fucking pants off of them.
It's not a good look.
But whenever they're able to, they can go and start a podcast.
Keep going.
Insurance.
Okay, here's the thing where he's grandstanding and overstating it. Like, people will try to do this to you, even like your boss at work. They'll try to do this to you to try to justify treating you badly or to try to get you to do more than what you should be doing. Well, we pay for this, like I'm paying for this cost, we got to do this, we got to make sure this is handled, we got insurance, we got to make sure everything's together, the fuel on the company car, like your car, there's interest. They're saying all this, but really the way this works out, it's auto payments. You pay someone to do it. There's things that you may not even know until one of your business people tells you, runs down the list. It's like, okay, handle it. So they're saying it to try to continue justify treating you just how they are, so that you feel like, okay, maybe I should stop asking for what I'm asking for, and maybe I'm asking too much. Again, someone has done this to him before, and now he's doing it to someone else.
Pay for the LLC formation. They could pay for the insurance. They could pay what it costs to go.
Pay for the LLC formation. How much is that realistically, bro? Like, you go to LegalZoom.com, you pay that shit. You do that in 10 minutes, bro.
Tour.
Just stop it.
Pay what it costs for the hours of lawyer work for deals.
Let's skip this part. I heard all this earlier, by the way.
You was there.
Well, yeah, now you're talking about how they were talking about his character, but plenty of people have spoken about your character. There are some pretty dingy things in the past. Like, people can certainly question your character, brother. Skipping ahead, y'all. We're about to end this.
I'm so confused with that whole thing.
I think that's Ian talking. Like, you got Yes Men in here.
And that was.
And the funny thing is, like, I said Charlemagne predicted this. This obviously was so obviously going to happen. Ebro predicted it. Go watch the Hot 97 Joe Budden. Rosenberg predicted it. Laura Stiles predicted it. Charlamagne the God predicted it. I'm sure at the Breakfast Club, Angela Yee agreed. Envy. Everyone in hip hop who can possibly even speak on this, who's in that peer group, even Nori was like, I'm surprised dude has gotten where he is. Like, I'm happy for him though, but I'm surprised. And I was on the episode Rory was there. No one's surprised by this, bro.
It was the same pod that I came in here and said.
And now he's the victim. Now he's painting himself as the victim. Somehow he's gonna still paint himself as the king of creators, and I'm for the artist, the little guy. And somehow his stands are still gonna believe it. But I think the average person is clearly. My timeline is full of like, this dude is insane right now. So
I was referencing Snowfall. I said, y'all want me to be mad at nigga?
Skip this.
That's what y'all doing. Turmoil and I didn't, because Joe's ever made. It's cute and rich.
Now you're talking about
They
academics.
Beyonce's, I wasn't that fortunate. My baby. They came on baby. But academics again in the future.
Yeah, so now he's talking about so yeah, this is probably the last point I'll get to you. Well, let me let Joe say it, so I don't wanna miss it.
But I'm saying he was questioning our friendship based off the fact that I may work with academics.
So Rory was questioning their friendship, him and Joe's friendship, based on the fact that Joe might work with academics again. So again, this just shows the hypocrisy of the Joe Budden podcast. And I'm probably, like, I've teetered in watching it, but, you know, this is just, this is not surprising, I can say. Like, I can act surprised, but it's not surprising. So he's saying, obviously, Rory, academics, they had their thing. You can go search that yourself. I'm not talking about the mess here. But it was pretty serious, bro. So you would expect if the person you're calling your friend, they're calling each other friend, Joe's saying, I'm your friend, this is friendly. Then this is their main thing. Well, as friends, it's friends. Like, I don't get into that, especially with dudes. That's like, as friends, you're just a dude to me. You talking about as friends, I'm disrespected that you would give, you know, consider working with academics again. Which is understandable from Rory's side. Like, this is probably a man, let's say, hypothetically, contributed to ruining your life. So you would expect one of your best friends, being Joe Budden, to create some distance. Definitely not go on camera with dude while y'all are still. So it's a reason why y'all are still, you know, doing the podcast together. So it's a reasonable request. But it's a request that Joe Budden, he laughs at it. But again, when Rory asks you for the hands on the podcast, when Rory asks you to fight, you were so offended because my friends, I'm saying, friends don't ask me about, don't ask this. I don't know. There's a whole episode where he's just going off about friendship and how friends don't ask, and he's asking all the people in the room, would you ever fight your friends? Would you ever fight your friends? But not only would you sue your friends, even before that, you would take academics and use academics as a tool. He's looking at it though because he needs to use academics. The podcast that you're having on your network, and I talk about this more in the downfall of Joe Budden video, those podcasts is not working. Your best numbers were with academic, more than likely in that era. Academics is the boss here. If it's academics Joe, academics is Jordan. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with Pippen. He's good too. Joe needs academic. Academics can never do anything with Joe again and be okay. Joe's shit is teetering. The Kevin Samuels interview bumped him up, and it was a very good move. That's good. But I know in the past he didn't want to be interviewing people. He doesn't like interviewing people. But now he's doing things he probably wouldn't have done before with his old cast because certain things ain't working. Definitely not those two other podcasts he got on. So again, bro, it's just hypocrisy.
In the future.
We about to end this.
I've worked with him. I understand. Rory said, Maul, you know Joe would work with academics again? And Maul said, yeah, man, but you already knew that.
Yeah, you already knew that. So that tells you how both Rory and Maul felt about this. Like, yeah, and the three of them all together probably have had academics or have conversation about academics, shitted on them, did this and that, to where it's like, okay, Joe's not fucking with him. But now to see now Joe fucking with him, it's like shocking. But then Mom's probably like, well, you know how Joe is, like he do shit like that. Like, you surprised? Same thing I'm saying. Like, no one's surprised, bro. No one's surprised.
I don't mind that little exchange, but boy, was it important.
Now he's the victim. All right, I'm done with this, bro. So, anyways, I didn't really say anything that intelligent in this video. It wasn't analytical or anything, but I know my subscribers wanted to hear me speak on it. So, excuse me if it's not that edited. I didn't really put too much effort into this. I'm sorry. But I do put amazing effort into the album review. So artists, be sure to submit your album review. I streamlined that process on top5rapwebsite.com, so you can go check that out. I'll write you an album review, do a video review. Go check out my reviews on my channel. I've done hundreds, if not at least 1,000 by now. Anyways, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. top5rapwebsite.com. Peace.